The top stories live from the Sky News City studio. The UK pledges hundreds of long-range attack drones to Ukraine as President Zelenskyy meets Rishi Sunak at Chequers. A warning that a lack of government support is stopping hauliers from investing in electric vehicle technology. The Black Swan theory will be asking how prepared the business world is for the next financial crisis. Plus two-time F1 champion Mika Hakkinen on his design for a new electric superbike.
When I was a kid, I was always riding a little moped in countryside in Finland, and then later on, of course, I end up to racing in the cars, ending up to Formula One.
Good morning, this is Inking Live and our business and economic news from the heart of the city. Well, we'll be getting to the business news in due course, but first, President Zelenskyy of Ukraine has arrived in the UK for a surprise visit. He's currently at Chequers, meeting the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. It comes as the UK has promised to send Ukraine more weapons, including hundreds of new attack drones.
There's a lot of great history here. In fact, this room that we're standing in, Winston Churchill made many of his famous speeches in World War II from this room. And in the same way today, your leadership, your country's bravery and fortitude are an inspiration to us all. I look forward to us discussing what more we can do to support you and your country.
This privilege to be here. Yes, the first time. You said not the last.
Definitely not the last.
So we, of course, we'll discuss very important issues, urgent support for Ukraine and security for, I think, not only for Ukraine, it's important for all the Europe. So thank you that you hosted me and invited me.
Well, with me now, Sky's political correspondent Tamara Cohen. Tamara, this is all about the weapons.
It certainly is, Ian. President Zelenskyy has been on a tour of European capitals this weekend ahead of a much anticipated counter-offensive by the Ukrainians. And although the UK had already just announced only last week that we would be sending Storm Shadow long-range missiles to Ukraine in the light of Russia's attacks on infrastructure, energy infrastructure, hospitals, he's back today. And there's the hug with Rishi Sunak. The Prime Minister just says, welcome back, President Zelenskyy. And he touched down at Chequers in the helicopter in the last hour, got a warm welcome from the Prime Minister, and there they are in one of the state rooms, and Rishi Sunak explaining that Winston Churchill had a lot of his meetings there during the Second World War. Now, this meeting does come with an announcement. So we just announced the Storm Shadows last week, and today the Prime Minister will confirm hundreds more air defence missiles and further unmanned aerial systems, including long-range attack drones with a range of 200 kilometres. And he'll say that all this will help Ukraine intensify its resistance to the ongoing Russian invasion. We know that the UK is also training thousands of Ukrainian troops here in the UK. President Zelenskyy visited them on his last visit in February, and there are now, we're told, 15,000 of them being trained here. So it's a visit that comes with an announcement about more weaponry, but President Zelenskyy has said that this is a tour focused on combat aircraft, and his battle for that continues. We know the UK said earlier this year that giving them our fighter jets, F-35s, was fraught with difficulty because they need years of training. We have facilitated neighbouring countries giving Ukraine some Soviet-era aircraft, but President Zelenskyy will want that to be stepped up if, as all the analysts say, he is to make any decisive progress in the war.
Thanks, Tamara. Well, if you click on the QR code on the screen right now, that will take you to our live blog where you can follow all the latest on President Zelenskyy's visit, and we will, of course, be bringing you updates throughout the morning here on Sky News. But now a lack of government support and an inadequate public charging network is stopping hauliers from investing in electric vehicle technology. That's a warning from Logistics UK, the trade body that represents the freight industry. It says that if the logistics sector is to decarbonise effectively in line with the government's 2050 net zero target, more support will be needed. Well, joining me now is Gardner. She's Deputy Director of Policy at Logistics UK. Michelle, welcome to you. What extent is the UK's van fleet currently electrified?
Good morning, Ian. Thank you for having me. So Logistics UK has just published our electric vehicle report, where we interviewed 32 of our members to find out what's happening with electric vehicles. And what they told us was 58% of them had switched some of their fleet to electric vans in the past 2 years. So we are seeing a good uptake of electric vans, but the reality is 0.9% of the total vehicle fleet is electric. So we still obviously have a substantial way to go.
Crikey. I mean, what does it typically cost an operator to switch their fleet to all electric?
Well, it's significantly more expensive than diesel equivalent. So you've got the higher cost of the vehicle itself. Then you've also got to pay for charging. So at a depot, you will need to put in charging. You also need to maintain the vehicles. Plus, the big cost for operators is also power supply. So if you're charging lots of vehicles, often at depots, you will need to increase the power supply, and that can cost anywhere between £100,000 up to £1 million. So a substantial investment for operators.
We had Biffa on the programme recently, the waste management company. I mean, they're converting their existing diesel fleet to electric rather than buying new. Is that an approach many will take?
Yes, I think we're going to see different approaches. So either as a way to transition. So one thing we're talking to government about is low carbon fuels, because they can drop into vehicles and actually help to decarbonise up to 80% of the vehicle fleet now, as well as adjustments to vehicles already on the roads to help operators switch, because some vehicles are particularly challenging. Use cases such as in rural areas or where there's not access to charging. So we need to think about different solutions in the transition to net zero.
Now, you're calling for government support. What sort of sums are you after?
It's not necessarily about sums, it's about thinking about what support can help the sector transition more rapidly. So capital allowances for tax allowances for capital investments could help with that power supply challenges, and also with the investment into equipment. We also need longer-term certainty on grants, so that when business cases are being planned, they know that those grants for vehicles will still exist in the years to come. But also it's about that fair and equitable solution for power supplies at depots. That is a real challenge if you're talking up to £1 million for vehicle operators.
I mean, some might say, hang on, 2050 is 27 years away. Why the rush?
Well, I know 2050 sounds like a long way away, but the first phase-out date for diesel vans is actually 2030, so about one vehicle life cycle away, and then 2035 for HGVs below 26 tonnes and 2040 for the largest HGVs.
Do you think these targets are realistic?
Well, they're phase-out dates, so it means that from those dates you won't be able to buy the older vehicles, you'll only be able to buy vehicles at a zero tailpipe emission. But we need to move quicker. If we're going to see the logistics industry rapidly change to zero tailpipe emission vehicles, we need to make sure the support is there. So that's why we're saying to government, help us on our journey, and then we can more rapidly reduce emissions.
In the meantime, I mean, is there a danger some operators might shut up shop rather than face the expense of going through all these changes?
I think logistics operators are facing a lot of challenges at the moment. Obviously, high inflation, volatile energy costs, other challenges. So this is an additional cost. And while our members are really keen to decarbonise, and we can see the enthusiasm through our report and the transition that's already taking place, we just need to give them the support they need so to make sure that operators can transition. All right, Michelle, got to leave it there. Good to see you this morning. Thank you. Thank you, Ian.
Some other stories now. And the US gold mining company Newmont has agreed a $17.8 billion takeover of Australia's Newcrest mining in a deal that will create the world's biggest gold mining company. The agreement comes after Newcrest turned down initial approaches from the US business 3 months ago. Newmont subsequently improved its terms. The deal is the third biggest in history involving an Australian company. Well, Tom Palmer, Newmont's chief executive, said Newcrest's copper assets had also been a key reason for wanting to do a deal. Shares of Chequers have risen by 6% this morning after the electrical goods retailer said profits during the financial year just ended would be better than expected. Chequers said it now expected to make a pre-tax profit of between £110 to £120 million for the year to the end of April. That was up from the £104 million it was previously guiding the market towards. It said trading in the UK and Ireland had been better than expected, and particularly during March and April. Full-year sales on a like-for-like basis are expected to have been down by some 7% on the previous 12 months. British American Tobacco's chief executive Jack Bowles stepped down today with immediate effect after 4 years in the job. His departure comes 3 weeks after the world's second largest quoted tobacco company agreed to pay US authorities at least $635 million to settle charges of sanctions busting in North Korea. Well, Mr Bowles, who'd been with BAT for 31 years, will be replaced by the company's chief financial officer, Tadeu Marroco. And shares of Wood Group have slumped by as much as 35% this morning. That was after the US private equity firm Apollo said it did not intend to make an offer for the consulting and engineering company. Well, Apollo, which had previously had 5 separate takeover approaches rejected by Wood, had until this Wednesday to make a firm offer under takeover rules. Its most recent approach was said to value Wood at just under £1.7 billion. Well, Wood Group, which employs some 35,000 people around the world, said it remained confident in its strategic direction and was enjoying good momentum across all business units. Now, the Black Swan theory was developed 22 years ago by the mathematician and former trader Nassim Nicholas Taleb to describe hard-to-predict events that come as a shock, that have a major impact and that can only be rationalised afterwards. Well, the theory has been taken increasingly seriously by businesses as they tried to build up resilience. But how do you prepare for an unpredictable event? Well, that's something that the business intelligence and software provider Mould International has been pondering. And joining me now is Limena. He's the chief executive of Mould International. Marco, very good morning to you. I mean, how can a business adequately prepare for a black swan event? Because by definition, we're talking about unknown unknowns almost.
Thank you for having me here, Ian. As you said, under the assumption that the disruption we're seeing since under COVID will be here to stay, we reach out to more than 2,400 international business leaders, and we ask them what is about their ability to plan. What we learned that a third of the businesses say they are not ready for the next disruption. However, many of the businesses are investing and are taking this issue very seriously. However, planning transformation are really complex, and there are still some major gaps to be addressed.
You mentioned the pandemic there. What sort of lessons have been learned, do you think?
Yeah, look at 22% of the businesses really don't feel prepared about the next pandemics. And what we're seeing that probably upgrading on the technology capability is probably the number one element of that. Unfortunately, still 98% of the business we interview, they're using very outdated technologies designed many years ago for solving problems of the future. The other one in that element, skill gaps to get them prepared. One of the key skill gaps we identify is data analyst. A big opportunity either to train the existing workforce or to bring from higher education skills that can help to react fast in the context of those situations.
So skill shortages and technology, those are the main two sort of challenges around planning?
I would say so.
What about the pandemic, of course, was completely out of a clear blue sky in terms of it wouldn't have necessarily had an issue around data. Are there other things like that concerning businesses?
So look at, we are not in the business of predicting the future, but where we are to give capability to the business to react and thrive. And what we're seeing that, if you take Gardner, an analyst you know very well, they confirm that there are some good news. There's an incredible upside for those businesses that achieve planning agility. In fact, between those that can plan at the speed of change and those one that plan too slowly, those ones that go faster are 198% more likely to take advantage of the opportunity created by the disruption, and only 124% more likely to mitigate those external events. So there is the opportunity, and that's what we're here to focus.
Could the invasion of Ukraine be described as a black swan event?
Look, if I go back to the theory, we think about those black swan events. Those are difficult to predict, and they are very catastrophic consequences. So I would think about that being one, the pandemic, and a recession as well, we're put in the category.
I mean, the modern CEO just has to be all sorts of things. I mean, they've got to be across the numbers. They've got to be all about the technology, future-proofing the business. It sounds like they've got to be experts in geopolitics as well these days.
No, but one thing that we see from the result of the survey, and one of the key element is the decision-making, the leadership. We say that planning is a team sport. Any organization need to become a data-driven organization, make sure that those insights for planning are available at all level organization. And the CFO need to get out of the walls of their department. They start working with the head of supply chain, head of sales and marketing, and head of merchandising. So we think about this as an enterprise-wide capability, and that's really the differentiator.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it goes all the way down through an organisation. If you think that every employee is being told to guard against things like cyber attacks, it's something for all people in a business.
You're totally right.
What I thought was interesting about your report, though, was that there are certain sectors who are more attuned to this than others. So it looks like the technology sector and, unsurprisingly, financial services are right across this. Did you detect a lack of resilience elsewhere?
So what we're seeing that those sectors that are least prepared, according to their answer, is catering, leisure, and retail. We have a lot of customers, particularly in retail, in fashion retail, and consumer goods. And what we see that all those elements that impact ability to spend and supply chain just impact also this type of businesses. So we work a lot with some of these businesses. And again, business agility, plan and react is one of the elements that allows some to stand out compared to the pressure there is in the sector.
All right, Marco, it's a fascinating subject. Thanks for talking it through with us.
Thank you so much.
Well, still to come here on Ian King Live. We're going to have a look at how the markets are doing this Monday morning. Don't go away.
Amazon Alexa Young Innovator Challenge is a challenge for teenagers where you create an Alexa skill, which is to help with your Alexa. And so mine is designed to help you recycle. So so imagine you're cooking and you've got a piece of plastic and your hands are wet, you don't have a leaflet nearby. You just ask Alexa, can I recycle this? And it will ask you a series of questions about if you can recycle the item or not. I think recycling is very important. Obviously, it leads to the future and what happens next in the next generations. And it's just a very vital part of our life and how it's going to develop over the next few years. I went to a camp with STEMettes when I was 7 years old, and also one of the founder of STEMettes is Anne-Marie Imafidon, who was also one of the judges of the competition. So it's kind of a full circle, nice, complete thing. And it was quite nice to have the judges as very important, and coding's very important to me, and it's quite vital in how we develop next generations. So everyone does computer science in the school up until year 8, and then they can choose if they want to develop it. But obviously it's very promoted about how important it is in the future. And that's why Amazon has the Future Engineer program, which gives women the chance to go to a university with funding, which is £20,000, and it's 30 women each year. And so these women are given the opportunity to do computer science or engineering with extra help from Amazon. I think AI should be used generously, and also people should be taught how to use it responsibly, especially as people come up with fears about it. But it's definitely going to become very important, and I just think we need to use it responsibly. I think some people are maybe a bit more suspicious, but then my 90-year-old grandma has an Alexa, used to have an Alexa, and she was able to use it confidently, and she could listen to music, and she could use it and maybe talk to us through it. And so she enjoyed it, and she actually knew how to use it very confidently.
Well, Turkish assets have sold off this morning amid signs that President Erdogan has a modest lead going into an expected runoff for the presidency. The Turkish lira has fallen to a 2-month low against the US dollar and is on course for its worst one-day fall in 6 months. Turkish government bonds have also sold off, while the cost of insuring against a Turkish government default has jumped to its highest price in 6 months. On the equity markets, well, the Nikkei in Tokyo was the star performer in the Asia-Pacific region overnight, hitting an 18-month high amid continued strong company results. Here in Europe, most of the indices are in positive territory right now. Only the IBEX in Madrid in negative territory right now. Talking points in Europe this morning include AXA. The insurer is ahead by some 2.5% in Paris as its quarterly results were well received. Well, here in London, the FTSE 100 is also in positive territory right now, up 0.25% on gains for some of the mining heavyweights. Leading blue chips higher this morning is the gold miner Endeavour. It's up 1.75% on the back of the Newcrest mining takeover. Anglo-American, another gold mining business, up by some 2% in the same sector. Outside the FTSE, Trainline, The shares there are ahead by some 5.5%. That's on supportive broker comment. Its results a couple of weeks ago were quite well received. Elsewhere in the mid-250, the distributor Diploma Group is ahead by just over 2%. That's after it posted a 30% rise in half-year sales. On the downside, I mentioned them earlier on in the programme, John Wood, the shares off 33% right now. It's the leading mid-cap faller on the end of those takeover talks. On the foreign exchange markets, well, sterling is up 1/5 of 1% right now against the US dollar. It's also up 1/6 of 1% nearly against the euro. The single currency, meanwhile, up just under 1/10 of 1% right now against the greenback. As for the oil price, well, that's continued to drift this morning amid ongoing concerns over global demand. A barrel of Brent crude more or less unchanged right now at $74.20 a barrel. Joining me this morning is Russ Mould. He's the investment director at AJ Bell. Russ, good to see you this morning. I mean, Turkish assets do tend to be somewhat volatile.
Is the word you're looking for, I think. Yeah, so the BIST 100, which is the Turkish equivalent of the FTSE 100, that's down around 3 to 4% this morning. And the lira continuing a long multi-year slide. I think it was 5 lira to the dollar 5 years ago. Now it's nearly 20. And a lot of this is down to President Erdogan's what are viewed as unorthodox policies from a Western point of view. He's been insisting central bank governors cut interest rates at a time of very, very high inflation. Yeah. So interest rates have come down from 19 to 8.5% over the past couple of years, when inflation's still running at 40 odd. So I think Western investors were hoping perhaps what they would see as a steadier hand at the tiller maybe coming in, but it looks as if the election results are going to be an awful lot closer than Western investors were expecting. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, it's amazing how resilient a lot of Turkish companies have had to be, given inflation in that country.
My wife works in the fashion industry and she's been dealing with Turkish suppliers and things they have to put up with in terms of currency movements and inflation make it extremely difficult for them. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let's talk about some of the individual company stories around this morning. Currys really took everyone a bit by surprise, I think.
Yeah, they dished out a few profit warnings, so expectations were quite low. The shares were trading near a 12-month low, but the results a little bit better than expected. Some of that's due to an accounting issue on a debtor, but I think probably the big one there is debt is down. Yeah. Less debt means less risk. Less risk can mean a higher share price. I think there's a big sigh of relief there. Overall, sales are still pretty difficult in the UK and in the Nordic region. Signs maybe of a little bit of improvement in the UK.
Yeah, now what about Wood Group?
I don't know whether that's a comment on Wood Group or a comment on Apollo, if the truth be told, because Apollo's had what can be described as a sticky run with its UK approaches. It's walked away from THG, walked away from Pearson, walked away from Wood, missed out on William Hill when Caesars Entertainment whipped that from under them, missed out on Morrison's when CD&R beat them to it. Rumours of a Sainsbury's bid that never appeared. I think it missed out on, went to First Group and had a look and walked away. So I guess you can say from their perspective, they're being disciplined, they're having a look, they're paying the price down, and then after that, that's it, we're not going to budge. So maybe you can say that. But equally, I'm sure investors in Wood will be a little bit perplexed as to why there was a fairly big premium offered and then withdrawn.
Yeah, to say the least. I mean, what was interesting, though, is that it took them 5 goes to get to the number as well. I mean, there's a lot of distraction on Wood's management in this.
The management's been a big grin on their time, and they'll be looking now to get back to basics. I mean, one of the key questions for Wood and Hunting, which is down in sympathy today, is oil expenditure has been very, very low for a very long time. Environmental reasons, with lots of pressure on not to drill holes in the Earth's crust. Lots of pressure on the oil price. That's not been encouraging investment either when it went negative a couple of years ago. But in theory, we're still addicted to hydrocarbons, much as we're trying to move away from them. There are signs of a little bit of an increase in activity, particularly in America, and Wood and Hunting would be quite well placed for that. Republicans, of course, are pressing for more shale activity in exchange for a budget deal in the US, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we talk about drilling holes in the Earth's crust. I mean, the BAT chief executive has fallen through a trapdoor in the boardroom this
That's
morning.
A weird one, because the chief executive leaving with immediate effect, no profit warning, no statement of any kind that things are going less well than expected, no activist beating the door down demanding changes. So that is an odd one. Maybe it's related to the North Korean sanctions busting fine, which Mr. Bolt has been at the company for a very, very long time. His replacement, the chief financial officer, Tadeo Morocco, been there about 4 years, so knows the business, but doesn't perhaps have that legacy associated. But yeah, a weird one, really. And the only other thing is Imperial Brand shares are up nearly 1/5 over the last year. BATs are down by something similar, so maybe 1 or 2 investors or the board have been having a little bit of a look at that. Imperial seems to be doing perhaps a bit of a better job adapting to the brave new world of vapes and e-cigarettes.
And they have a relatively new CEO, of course.
They do, Mr. Bomhard,
Now, what about another company that's caught your eye this morning, Restore? It's a business, we've had the CEO on the programme a few times.
I think it's a pretty sensible company. The core of it is storing documents in some old bomb shelter out in Berkshire, I think, which, has got to be done. But they also do office moves and they do IT and equipment recycling. Now, I guess office moves could be a bit quiet at the moment, given that space is not exactly difficult to find. And also, but it's the IT recycling business that they've said has gone slow on them. I guess it was a big upgrading kit that firms put in 2-3 years ago because of lockdowns, and I think they're just hanging on to it. And that ties in with a lot of things we're hearing from the consultants, that PC sales are down by something like a quarter year on year, which is why people have been waiting for more profit warnings from the tech sector, from people like Apple and Microsoft, and they've not been happening yet. But another sign that maybe things aren't quite as straightforward there as they may seem.
Slowing PC sales, hard to square that with what we heard out of Currys. I mean, Currys is obviously retail.
This is the thing, and I guess Currys is more retail, whereas Restore is more corporate. But yeah, it is intriguing, which again, Microsoft's been clearly doing brilliantly. Apple, its Mac sales were down very, very sharply in the first quarter, but it was again dug out by that wearables and accessories and the app ecosystem that it's got, which just makes customers so sticky.
Yeah, Russ, got to leave it there. Always good to see you.
Pleasure.
Thanks a lot. Still to come here on Ian King Live. I've been speaking to the two-time Formula One champion Mika Hakkinen about his design of a new electric superbike. If you're into F1 or indeed superbikes, you don't want to miss this. Welcome back. We just want to show you the latest pictures that we're getting of President Zelensky's arrival at Chequers, which is obviously the Prime Minister's grace and favour home in Buckinghamshire. There is Rishi Sunak waiting to greet President Zelensky. There we are, old friends reunited. We will have more on that as we get them. These pictures, I should say, by the way, have been supplied to us by number 10 Downing Street. Doubtless there'll be a lot more over the next few days. If you click on the QR code on the screen, meanwhile, and that will take you to our live blog, and you can follow all the latest on President Zelensky's visit there. Now, recent years have seen growing business awareness of the menopause. Many businesses have introduced menopause-specific HR policies, with some, like Bank of Ireland, offering menopause leave to staff. Others, meanwhile, are offering products and services to cater for the needs of women going through the menopause. Well, among them is Novamins, the gummy vitamin supplement brand, which is launching a range of women's gummies designed to provide menopausal support. Joining me now is Valerie Stark-McQuillan. She's Board Director and Chief Marketing Officer of Novamins. Valerie, great to see you this morning. What was the impetus for this?
First of all, thank you for having me in. We created a comprehensive gummy range for women, and it covers not only menopause, it also covers fertility and PMS and other general issues that women experience during their lifetime. And the reason we created specifically our menopause gummies is to provide women with a delicious solution that aimed at supporting their health during this challenging time in their lives. And we know, according to statistics, pretty much 100% of women, but with severe symptoms, 85% will experience the menopausal symptoms. And this experience is already daunting. So we decided to create something delicious that can support them during this time.
I mean, you studied neuroscience. Has that informed the approach that you're taking here?
Absolutely. In our formulations for all three different health concerns, we've created formulations that are combine tradition and latest neuroscience and science advances. And we combined herbal medicines and scientifically studied medicines together with vitamins and minerals, as well as latest science-backed bacteria.
I mean, the menopause affects mental health as well as physiological health.
Absolutely.
Presumably it's the latter that you're essentially trying to treat in the first instance here.
These are comprehensive formulations, so we're trying to aim at all different symptoms. And for example, when it comes to the bacteria that we introduce in our formulations, which is the world's first formulations in a gummy form, the bacteria aimed at lots of different symptoms, including the psychological health.
I mean, without getting too technical on me here, what's the science that underpins this?
So, for example, when we talk about bacteria is something that communicates to our brain. And depending on the balance of bacteria in our gut, our mood can fluctuate. And this is what happens a lot when we approach menopausal age.
All right. Has much work been done on that, the imbalances in the gut then that happens when a woman's going through the menopause?
Absolutely, and this connected to the decrease of estrogen. At the same time, it's very important to supply body with specific bacteria which will get rid of excess of estrogen. There are different types of estrogen in women's body, and one of the very big challenges right now in the modern world, women exposed to too much estrogen in the environment through, for example, cleaning products and the makeup. So whilst it's important to have a certain amount of estrogen, good estrogen as we call it, the bad estrogen, xenoestrogens, should be eliminated in the body. And that's why also it's important to introduce the friendly bacteria that does the job, as well as mix of vitamins and minerals such as magnesium, which eliminates the excess of estrogen.
That's absolutely fascinating. I mean, I had no idea that it was in cleaning products and things like that. Why is that allowed to happen?
Well, look, a lot of things are happening in the environment. And unfortunately, unless you are conscious about yourself and you consciously eliminate those things from your life, we as women have to face those issues. And one of the issues that we often face with those excess estrogen levels are endometriosis as well and PMS symptoms.
Valerie, it's a fascinating topic. I wish I could talk more with you, but we're out of time, I'm afraid. Good to see you this morning. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Now, we've talked a lot on this programme about electric cars and electric trucks, but there's also a burgeoning electric motorcycle industry. And where there are bikes, there are superbikes. Among the leading players in the field is the Finnish company Verge Motorcycles. Its investors include the Formula One legend Mika Hakkinen, and the two-times world champion has just designed a new limited edition superbike for the business that goes on sale today. I've been speaking with him.
First of all, I'm a huge motorbike fan, and since when I was a kid, I was always riding a little moped in countryside in Finland, and then later on, of course, I end up to racing in the cars, ending up to Formula One, and winning a world championship a couple of times. So I never really didn't have opportunity to really explore the motorbike so much. But now later on, of course, I did retire already 2001, so that's quite a few years ago. So now I had through my friends' connection, the network, I had an opportunity to be part of the company Verge, which are making a electric superbike, and I was fascinated because the technology, what they can create, innovation, what they have, and the battery technology. And I thought, I want to be part of this. This is going to be amazing. And here I am today in Monaco, opening the shop together with the Verge team, and giving a Monaco the opportunity to have an amazing superbike.
You had a reputation in F1 for being quite heavily involved in the car development. Clearly, you've carried that into this.
You're absolutely right. The most of them were catastrophic. We did develop together with my teammate David Coulthard, Paddy Lowe, with the great designers Adrian Newey. We had an incredible team and that time when I was racing Formula One, the regulations were much wider, much more possibilities to do different kind of innovations. So we designed in Formula One 2 brake pedals. Why two brake pedals? Because we always had some technical issue in the corners with the car. So with the second brake pedal, we were able to balance the car. I'm not going to go to details, but it's just an example. Other example is, with the innovations, I did mention to the engineers and designers that way, every time when I'm accelerating out of the corner, I'm always feeling I'm a little bit late on the throttle pedal. So can we have the throttle pedal in the steering? So that's what they did. They built the steering wheel, they built with the throttle in the steering wheel. And of course it didn't work. But but it gave the indication for the engineers to find the other way to help me with the performance of the car. So it was an incredible time. And so that's why, like this incredible Verge motorbike, the engine is located inside in a rear wheel. The battery is extremely low in a bike. That means the center gravity is low. So the going through the corners, changing direction, overtaking, for the safety reasons, it is incredibly beautiful to handle. So unbelievable. Great work from the team.
You've talked about some of the design features there. Which are the design features you're most proud of in this bike? Everything, honestly. I think that but one of the things, of course, we use a lot of carbon fiber in a bike. And also what I'm really impressed is the center gravity. Because I know from Formula One that way you can put the center gravity lowest possible. It really gives you the great opportunity to design the car with aerodynamically. That way it handles great in under braking, in acceleration, in a cornering, and then you can create the great lap times. And the motorbike is the same thing, So I would say the center gravity was one of those things which make me very impressed. Now, the bike's going on sale in a number of European countries, including Germany, Italy, France, Spain, Finland, of course, and Monaco. Will UK customers be able to get their hands on it if they want one?
Absolutely. And me, being in England and the racing in British team, I have seen on the road a lot of motorbikes and of course the racing is very popular in England. So absolutely. But I recommend to have my edition of the bike because that is super fast.
It will be retailing, of course, at €80,000. It's one for the sort of hardcore aficionados.
But this is a mega performance, I tell you. You can, with this bike, you can go roughly about, no, not roughly, 350 kilometers. You can charge it in 35 minutes. So it has a really top-end qualities.
And what are your reflections on the F1 season thus far?
Well, I did recognize on the start of the season in a testing a program what the teams had before they went to first Grand Prix, that Red Bull is very strong and really reliable, and also looking at the Red Bull car in the corners, it did look very stable compared to other teams. So I already knew start of the season they're going to go for it. So in terms of that, I wish of course that there would be a great performance coming from the other teams to challenge the Red Bull, but they really are dominating. McLaren really working hard, definitely not getting results what they want to have. They struggling, but the team is still, they are extremely positive, very confident that they will get it right. And we knew wind tunnel will help them. Like Zach Brown has said, that way, maybe a year, maybe maximum 2, and they will be there flat out. And I'm confident also with that. Zach is a great team leader. They have a great drivers. And knowing from my experience, when I was in Formula One and when I was with McLaren, it took me 7 years before I won my first Grand Prix. So it can be very painful. So people very often forget that pain, what it goes through the losing. But end of the day, when you win, everything looks good. And I'm confident McLaren will be winning soon in the future.
Time now for a look at this morning's business pages, and the Financial Times leads its print edition with news that the G7 and the EU will ban Russian gas imports on routes where Moscow has cut supplies. The measure will prevent the resumption of Russian pipeline gas exports on routes to countries such as Poland and Germany, and of course keep up economic pressure on Moscow. The FT also reports on its front page that the EU is coming under mounting pressure from Europe's biggest derivatives houses to rethink its plans for taking euro-denominated clearing away from the City of London. Well, the Times leads its business pages with a report that a project being run by the outsourcing company Capita to update technology behind the BBC's licence fee collection is behind schedule, over budget and considered to be in a critical state. The Times also reports that the BP pension fund is refusing to increase payouts to retirees despite the bumper profits being made by the company. Meanwhile, the Daily Telegraph leads with a report that Tory MPs are concerned that the forthcoming Renters Reform Bill being pushed through by the Housing Secretary Michael Gove will lead more landlords to quit the housing rental market. Telegraph also reports that the supermarket chain Morrison's has announced a major round of price cuts in essentials such as bread rolls, coffee and cornflakes, just days after supermarket bosses were asked by the Treasury what they were doing to bring down food prices. Well, joining me this morning is Juliana Tattelbaum. She's an anchor on our sister channel, CNBC. Juliana, good to see you this morning. Talk to me about this FT splash. I mean, this feels as though the EU is basically signing up for more economic pain.
Well, good morning, Ian. Thank you for having me. This story about the EU and the G7 banning the restart of Russian gas flows is largely symbolic. You'll remember back at the start when Russia first invaded Ukraine, the EU was reluctant to target Russian gas flows because of the immense dependence on Russia. But then Russia cut off those flows to Europe. It essentially got to it first. Now, this is all about preventing a quick restart of those gas flows. If, for some reason, Europe were to turn around or Russia were to turn around and want to resume those gas flows, this is essentially saying that won't happen. And the reason for that is partly to give confidence to those investing in LNG infrastructure, the confidence to put forward major investment that's needed to continue this pivot away from Russian gas toward LNG. And if the risk of a restart of Russian gas flows, Russian pipeline gas is not there, maybe it gives these investors more confidence to go for LNG infrastructure.
Yeah, that's a good point. One thing that I was slightly unclear on is where the impetus for this came from with this initiative.
Well, I will come back to the point that it feels largely symbolic at this point, given that it won't directly affect flows. But Europe wants to continue taking a hard line. The G7 is taking place this summit at the end of this week, and this is something that they can put forward that doesn't have an immediate impact on the European economy, but does send a signal.
Absolutely. We're talking of the European economy. We've just had some updated growth forecasts.
Yeah, this morning the European Commission came out. They update their growth forecast 4 times a year, and today they have revised up both their growth and inflation forecasts. Not a huge surprise, given that the PMI surveys have been strong of late. They are now looking at growth for the EU of 1% in 2023, 1.7% in 2024. In terms of what's driven the uplift there, lower energy prices. So tying it back to the story there, we have seen the price of gas come down significantly, and that's been a boon to the European economy. But there are still risks on the horizon, and as part of this report, the European Commission says that downside risks to the economic outlook have increased.
What about Germany in particular? Because there's a lot of concern about Germany stagnating, isn't there?
There certainly is concern about Germany stagnating. There's also a lot of focus on the labor market, and in this report, the Commission note that the labor market does remain resilient and inflation pressures remain a problem. Core inflation remains elevated, and this is the case in Germany and other major European economies. And on that front, they say inflation is now forecast 5.8% in 2023, 2.8% in 2024 in the euro area, but they do expect it to gradually come down, as you can see there.
Goodness, I mean, that the implications of that is the interest rates in the Eurozone are going to be higher for longer.
It's sort of this story all over the place that interest rates are going to remain higher for longer, but nothing compared to the UK, where inflation's still running north of 10%.
No, we're still the champions of Europe in terms of inflation, aren't we? Now, what about this story in the Telegraph? That caught your eye, the Morrison's story.
Yeah, well, partly because of inflation in the UK. And last week we had the Bank of England come through on Thursday, and Andrew Bailey said that the rise in the cost of food was behind almost all of the elevated inflation that we've seen in the last few months. So Morrison's has come out saying that they're cutting the prices of breakfast essentials. Now, Morrison's rolls are actually cheaper than rolls you can buy at Aldi, Sainsbury's, and Tesco. And this move is interesting because it comes just days after a number of supermarket bosses met with the Treasury. The Treasury ultimately wanted to understand, why are prices still high, and is there anything you can do to bring them down? One advantage Morrison's has over some of the other grocers is they control some of their food production, so they can adjust prices potentially a little bit more easily than some of their peers.
Yeah, it looks quite clever timing from a PR perspective on the part of Morrison's as well, doesn't it?
Certainly does, and I think they're probably trying to gain market share. We've seen Aldi and Lidl make some major market share gains over the last several months as people opt for cheaper alternatives.
I mean, what I find really interesting about this is that Morrison's, of course, is now owned by private equity. There's been a lot of speculation that it was loaded up with debt. It wouldn't necessarily have the sort of financial flexibility to do something like this. So it's kind of a riposte to that as well, isn't it?
Well, certainly. And I guess it comes back to the fact that they do seem to have more control over their supply chain than some of their peers. But if we do see a renewed spike in some of the key commodity inputs, it's going to be hard for Morrison's not to get squeezed on margins if they keep prices low or continue to cut prices across further parts of the market.
Absolutely. Juliana, always good to see you.
Thanks,
for joining
Ian.
me. And a reminder to check out the Ian King Live podcast, which you can find by scanning the QR code on your screen right now. It's available now wherever you get your podcasts, including the Sky News app, Apple and Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Well, still to come here on Ian King Live. We're going to be live at Chessington World of Adventures as it opens its new World of Jumanji attraction. Don't go away.
Amazon Alexa Young Innovator Challenge is a challenge for teenagers where you create an Alexa skill, which is to help with your Alexa. And so mine is designed to help you recycle. So so imagine you're cooking and you've got a piece of plastic and your hands are wet, you don't have a leaflet nearby. You just ask Alexa, can I recycle this? And it will ask you a series of questions about if you can recycle the item or not. I think recycling is very important. Obviously, it leads to the future and what happens next in the next generations. And it's just a very vital part of our life and how it's going to develop over the next few years. I went to a camp with STEMettes when I was 7 years old, and also one of the founder of STEMettes is Anne-Marie Imafidon, who was also one of the judges of the competition. So it's kind of a full circle, nice, complete thing. And it was quite nice to have the judges as very important, and coding's very important to me, and it's quite vital in how we develop next generations. So everyone does computer science in the school up until year 8, and then they can choose if they want to develop it. But obviously it's very promoted about how important it is in the future. And that's why Amazon has the Future Engineer program, which gives women the chance to go to a university with funding, which is £20,000, and it's 30 women each year. And so these women are given the opportunity to do computer science or engineering with extra help from Amazon. I think AI should be used generously, and also people should be taught how to use it responsibly, especially as people come up with fears about it. But it's definitely going to become very important, and I just think we need to use it responsibly. I think some people are maybe a bit more suspicious, but then my 90-year-old grandma has an Alexa, well, used to have an Alexa, and she was able to use it confidently, and she could listen to music, and she could use it and maybe talk to us through it. And so she enjoyed it, and she actually knew how to use it very confidently.
Global insight, made local. Invest in your future. Sky News Financial Reports, sponsored by Interactive Investor. Invest in your future. Sky News Financial Reports, sponsored by Interactive Investor.
Welcome back. Just got a bit of breaking news to bring you about some lines that we've just been getting out of Moscow during the last few minutes. These are pictures, the latest pictures from Chequers, by the way, of President Zelensky's visit to see the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. The Kremlin says that President Vladimir Putin is to hold a meeting of Russia's Security Council later on today. That meeting has been brought forward from later in the week. And the Kremlin's also had some words to say on the latest British support being given to Ukraine. The Kremlin says British help will not affect the outcome of Russia's special military operation in Ukraine. That's the euphemism, of course, that the Kremlin uses to describe its invasion of Ukraine. The Kremlin has also said it takes an extremely negative view of British military help for Ukraine. They've also been lashing out at Emmanuel Macron, the French president, who, of course, Mr. Zelensky visited over the weekend. And during the course of that meeting, President Macron said that he felt that Russia was now a vassal state of China. And it's fair to say the Kremlin has taken exception with that form of wording. Now, from Alton Towers to Legoland, the UK's theme parks will be battling out for customers this summer as the theme park business continues to recover post-COVID. Well, Chessington World of Adventures is hoping its new World of Jumanji attraction, which opens this morning, will attract families looking for a fun day out. It costs £17 million to build and features 3 new rides, including a new roller coaster, Mandrill Mayhem. Well, joining me now live from Chessington World of Adventures is Ramesh Ganson. He's Chessington's former general manager and currently divisional director. Ramesh, welcome to you. This is a huge investment. How quickly do you expect it to pay for itself?
Hi, Ian. Live now from World of Jumanji. Definitely with a multi-million-pound investment, bringing Sony and Merlin together, introducing the World of Jumanji at Chessington. Definitely, we're looking at a very attractive demand that will drive attractions and also increase our attendance locally and internationally. So we're looking at a quite short span of time, definitely for the breakout.
What were the big challenges in putting it all in place?
Of course, we went through the planning stage itself. After that, overall, it was fantastic. It was very smooth. I would say that there's a lot of planning that across various departments that has gone through. So there's not much of a significant challenges we have seen. Currently, the end product that we're seeing now is where a lot of joyful screams of our family members coming here, creating a lot of memorable experiences.
Yeah, it looks like it's pretty busy there behind you. I thought, shouldn't these people be at school at the moment?
Yes, we do have also school kids here as well with the teachers legally. And also a lot of families, young family members are here. The park is buzzing. We hope to welcome you as well to experience the Mandrill Mayhem. and probably in a couple of seconds you would be seeing Mandrill Ma'am going past behind me. So you're going to be seeing a lot of family screaming.
I mean, this is built on land that there it goes. Look at that. Rather than me, I think. What about it's built on a site that used to be called Beano Land? I guess that sort of emphasises how you keep having to reinvent and reimagine the service and the product that you're offering.
Yes, that's correct. As well, because of the consumer segments that we see with younger generation family members, definitely updating our products and keeping them evolved is really important to our business. And as we continue to bring in new products into the market, we're attracting a new consumer segments, which is locally as well and internationally. So that's really helpful.
Now, we talked just now about the post-pandemic bounce back. I mean, there's a lot of talk anecdotally about so-called revenge spending. How strong is the pent-up demand that you're seeing right now?
I must say, we have had a great season opening. Since Easter event itself from April 1st, we have seen a significant growth on our attendance, which we are also attracting a new consumer segment into Chessington. And now with the launch of Jumanji, I believe this will be really strong demand for us. And consumer spends tend to be still strong at Chessington.
What about your costs? Presumably you are grappling like everyone else with higher inflation right now.
Yes, we do. The good part is that we have a lot of caliber team members across the supply chain where we are negotiating. And the good thing is that UK Merlin, we come across with multiple parks, Legoland, Windsor, Alton Towers. We look at how we negotiate with our suppliers to get the best deal so that end consumers do not feel the high price that they have to pay for.
And what about labour shortages? Has that been an issue for you?
What I hear is that last year was a challenge, but this year it's been amazing. We have received a lot of applicants who's wanting to come and work with us, so that's positive news for us.
All right, Ramesh, we've got to leave it there. Appreciate you joining me today, and best of luck for the opening. Thank you.
Thank you. Look forward to welcoming you here.
That's it from me for today. There's much more on the Sky News mobile app and on the website with reporting, video content and analysis from our business team. If you look there right now, there's a piece I did on Friday afternoon about the extradition of Mike Lynch, the former Autonomy CEO, to the United States. A story, of course, broken by my colleague Mark Lyman. Well, I'm going to be back at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. Hope very much to see you then. In the meantime, do stay tuned. After this short break, Jane Secker will be up with all the latest on President Zelensky's visit to the United Kingdom. Thanks for joining me today. Cheerio.